Hello folks, this is Soul with another video, and we're going to react to some new information that we're learning about patch 10.1 season 2, and notably with Mythic Plus stuff. And I'm going through this again. I actually already did a reaction with my stream just a little bit ago before I went offline, but I wanted to take another look at this again, kind of clean up my thoughts, give some reactions. Most of them are kind of leaning negative, but well, we'll see how things look as they go along. For now, we're just going to take a look at things as we see them and react. And well, like the video, subscribe for more content. The big takeaways that we have right now, one is that there are some affixes that are going away. Quaking, Grievous, and Volcanic are no longer going to show up. Now, between these three affixes, I would say that these are kind of easier to deal with. Grievous is probably the most difficult to deal with. It's a healer sort of thing. If things are going bad, Grievous stacks rise. It becomes that much harder to keep people up and everything. But if things are going okay, then Grievous is pretty forgettable. Quaking has its moments where there are certain boss mechanics that make Quaking like really fatal, but outside of that, it's more or less kind of a nuisance. Healers and casters will need to wait for it to go off so that way they don't get interrupted, but that's about it. And Volcanic is Volcanic, just don't stand in the thing and then you're okay. So I would say that of the remaining affixes, these ones are kind of like easier to deal with. Now, some of the news, or more of the reactions, are coming from these new affixes that are coming in. We're going to read them, we're going to react, and we're going to speculate, all right? First one is called Incorporeal. While in combat, incorporeal beings appear and attempt to destabilize players with spells that reduce their damage and healing done. Incorporeal beings are susceptible to all forms of crowd control. Now, based on what we're seeing here, these NPCs, we don't know how many are going to pop up, but they are incorporeal. They're not able to be damaged, they're not able to be killed, but they are susceptible to all forms of crowd control. So AoE stuns and silences and blinding light and sheep and interrupts and kicks and all sorts of things. So we're not quite sure how long they last. They might appear at random times, they might appear, mid-combat, they might appear way across over there, and someone's gonna go and have to interrupt them, otherwise they're going to really mess with us. Not sure if they can be moved, although they are supposed to be susceptible to like everything, so maybe it'd be easy enough to just bring them all in, AoE stun them, focus on the actual ads that need to get killed before these things disappear. That could be a thing. It could be something where, okay, cool, there's the incorporeal things, okay, great, someone do a mass route on those, and then we'll go line of sight, and that's kind of it, until we're done with combat with these mobs that we're killing. Now, again, questions that I have, and, we'll have to wait for testing to really find out, how long do they last? Do they last until the end of combat? Do they have a duration? Some folks in chat were wondering if they were kind of like those sparks in Razageth, where if you interrupt them or something like that, then they destabilize and just like disappear or something like that. Now, this seems really annoying, but if you can handle the crowd control of these things, then you can pretty much forget about them for the most part. Now, it does kind of compel anyone on the team to have like mass CC or some sort of crowd control effects available on them so they can handle these. And then what's also going to matter is how many of these targets are there. So it's going to be like an entire team effort, or is it going to be largely like one role? Are there going to be instances where some classes are going to be way too disadvantageous for something like this? It could be something where, hey, yeah, they're technically casters, but if you root them, they just stop all activity or something like that. Or if they get stunned, they don't just get stunned, they get like mega stunned. Like you stun them and you pretty much remove them from combat for however long the combat is or something like that. So it might be something simple like that. We're just gonna have to wait and see. By the way, these are all level 7 affixes, and we're going to take a look at how these things kind of pair up against the others once we go through the list. Next affix is called Afflicted. While in combat, afflicted souls appear that seek the aid of players. Afflicted souls spawn with poison, curse, and disease afflictions. Removing any of these afflictions or restoring the spirit to full health causes it to despawn. Fail to remove their afflictions in time will inflict players with a negative status effect. So the wording is a little bit vague here, but let me reread it. Removing any of these afflictions. Actually, let me go to this part here. Afflicted souls spawn with poison, curse, and disease afflictions. Removing any of these afflictions or restoring the spirit to full health causes it to despawn. So, couple dudes come out. You can't kill them. They're just there. They have these afflictions. If you remove any of them, so if the healer who can cleanse diseases but not poisons, if they cleanse a target, cool, they're considered cleared. If the protection paladin with their awesome healing happens to throw a couple of heals onto those things, then great. Then that takes care of that target. They didn't have to cleanse or anything like that. The rogue who was there ignores them and just continues stabbing and doing other stuff like that. So there are options. There are reasons for some classes to like not really worry about them, or this might be punitive in some class comps where they may not have those sorts of cleanses, and then I guess in this case the responsibility of afflicted will kind of shift between players depending on the comp. Maybe the healer will have to take care of all that stuff. Maybe it's easy for the healer to take care of all that stuff. Like I don't know, I can't really think of an effective healer, but if they could just be like, wow, and just do a giant AoE heal and it happens to clear everything and like that's it, then it's like, take that. But then otherwise, other classes that can do things to cleanse or assist with these sorts of things, that's going to help too. Between these two, like these seem to be like easy to handle. Like it depends on the comp and it's going to be annoying, but I have a feeling in practice this is going to be a bit easier to handle than you think. It does suck that it's not like, well, I guess I'll talk about Kiss Curse stuff later. It does suck that it doesn't include that. Like it'd be cool if, hey, if you actually do cleanse it, then everyone gets like a nifty buff or something like that. Like that would be nice. That would be neat. And then finally, this affix, Entangling. While in combat, Entangling vines snare players. Now, I've been hearing a lot of stuff on social media and some reactions, and another person in our chat pointed out it's a snare. It's called Entangling, and we think Entangling roots, and I think there's even like a Wowhead post that shows someone with Entangling roots, but it's a snare. A snare slows you down. It still sucks. Like if I'm trying to run away from Sanguine or some sort of boss mechanic and I'm suddenly being snared, I'm going to have to do something about it. I would need to pop my horse, or Blessing of Freedom, or Priest would need to mass Dispel, or something like that. And we're not entirely sure how these vines work. Do they work like is it just a slow? Everyone just slows down for a little bit? Is it like suddenly a vine just grabs us and then kind of like running away from those plants that we pick up in, those vegetables that we plant in Pandaria? Do we have to like keep running away and then it snaps and then we're free? Not quite sure there. But I'd say this one would be like a little bit, it's faster to handle, but it's not something that that no class or comp or role is going to be much more advantageous in. I mean, maybe it will be, depending on how it is that this snare happens. And then they also updated explosive. There's fewer explosives, but they now have substantially higher health. That kind of sucks, because I think we're mostly used to having this be trivialized by usually a healer. They would just pop some sort of instant thing, but now it looks like it's going to take a little bit more than that. As for what substantially higher means, not sure. Maybe it's going to mean they're going to have as much health as any of the mobs in a dungeon. Maybe it's going to mean that they take 2 hits of Moonfire instead of just 1. We're going to have to wait and see on that. That is, I'd say, kind of like really annoying, but oh well, that's what we're getting right now. So there's a lot of negative feedback that's going on with these three new affixes. I think in practice, these are going to be easier to handle than we think. But you also need to take into context like what else is happening in season 2. One, we're going to get brand new dungeons. Okay, not brand new dungeons, but you know what I mean. We're going to get a new round of dungeons that we're going to have to deal with these affixes with, and drawing upon memories of season 1 dungeons isn't exactly fair. Some folks have brought up certain mechanics that would be very unfriendly under these sorts of conditions, but we need to take into context season 2 stuff. So I also wanted to take a look at this little chart here where we have a look at all the level 4 and level 7 affixes, and we need to consider like what combinations might be like awful, what are better, which are better than others. We also need to consider there's going to be no seasonal affix. There's no thundering, there's no prideful, there's no whatever it is. We just have one affix, affix number 1, affix number 2, and then whether it's fortified or tyrannical, followed by this new round of dungeons. So Incorporeal, which is again the one where you have dudes that you need to CC, otherwise they'll do some bad stuff for you. How does it really translate to these level 4 affixes? Spiteful and Incorporeal, how does that feel? Sanguine, Incorporeal, bursting, bolstering, raging. Hard to say, because again, we don't really hit, we're not trying this out right now. We don't have field experience, but this is something that I think that folks should really consider when giving feedback on this, and of course actually try it out on the PTR, give it a shot, see how these things sort of feel. At a glance, it doesn't feel like there's really strong synergy between the level 7 affixes and the level 4s. There's like some where things can be like really bad, like so for example Entangling and Spiteful. So if you happen to be slowed at the time while you're trying to run away, how fast is the Spiteful going to catch you? Should you make sure that you move like a little bit earlier? But also with regards to Entangling, how often is that going to happen? Does it happen at the same frequency as Spiteful? Does it occur? Yeah, okay, so it only occurs while in combat, but when Spiteful's are out, that's still considered combat. You can expect them to be chasing you up until they disappear. How does Explosive work with things like well, we already know how Explosive works with these, but again, those are the combinations that I think we should consider. Again, I don't have great feedback on this. I think these are, at a glance, especially because we're not used to them, these feel pretty punishing. And I know that many in the community have been clamoring for kiss curse sorts of things that we can overcome that will provide a benefit to players. I am also aware that Blizzard's statements on that, they kind of summed up to the idea that they don't want to make affixes cause dungeons to feel easier than they should be, because people aren't exactly playing the dungeon, they're just playing the affix to their advantage and doing their best to trivialize that and then strategize around the buff around you would get from the kiss portion of the affix. But there's a lot of discussion going on. I encourage you to have your own. I don't have I don't have a strong opinion yet, other than like I'm really anxious about how this is going to turn out. I have a feeling that once we go through some iteration, once we get through the rounds of feedback and people addressing their bringing up concerns and all that, that these are going to be probably chopped down. But I know that when I first looked at this, like maybe about an hour or so ago, at first I was like, ooh, this looks pretty bad. But then, looking into the words and making more considerations, it doesn't seem to be as bad as I think. It's new, which already makes it awful, because it's like, oh, now there's something new that we need to deal with. But just gonna have to wait and see, try things out. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, complaints, grievances, and all that. And that's gonna be it. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Like the video if you did. Subscribe for more content, and I'll see you guys later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.